like the front light or something. Old Alex. Second to the top button. Second button from the top. Yeah, second. There you go. There you go. No, stop touching. We good? That good? Yeah. Any darker, I'll go to sleep up here. Okay. So I've made a couple of changes to this since we last met to get some things kind of working in preparation for us to start pushing ahead with the mobile app. So let's run this quickly and see where we left off and see if we can put on some finishing touches to get the mobile application in, let's say, a reasonable spot, or the website in a reasonable spot. And then we'll go from there. Open. All right, so I'm gonna get this is the main website, and then we need to remember to start our server. Let me just kill off some stuff here. Android Studio probably needs a restart tomorrow anyways. All right, so we had our node server we wrote last time. So I just do node app.js. This should get our server up and running and listening on port 3000. This was for managing the processing of the payments. And where we left it off last time is our, we had moved the button and then it stopped working, right? So it's working now. So let's walk back through this and I'll show you what the scoop is. First of all, I changed these text boxes just a little bit, and I'll show you the code for that so you could actually tab between them without having to tab multiple times, because that was getting very annoying. So we'll do user1 at user.com, abc123. Go ahead and log in. So a couple of things in the code that I changed. Well, so for starters, I'll go ahead and click this purchase button. You'll see it pops up. And I'll show you how we kind of accomplish that, and also the current weakness that we'll spend a little time today figuring out, and then kind of pause this guy for a second till we catch the mobile app up. Okay, so let's go back into the code. Creepy. Who you gonna call? Okay, so let's get into, I'll leave that open. I'm going to close this for right now. So just index controller, okay. So here's our authentication thing. I just took a bunch of the CSS stuff off the input thing. Just gave it a placeholder for username, and it's still just our normal NG model. Although I was having an issue with this. When I had it set up as the NG model like we've had all along, in the index controller, here's our login, this guy right here. Notice I had to change this to say this.username and this.password. Before I had scope.username and scope.password, but it was not picking up the username and password, which is weird because that did work previously. So I'm guessing it was something we had moved around last time towards the end. But that ends up becoming kind of a scoping rule type issue. If we go back to this. So it's the body tag that says it belongs to the index controller. This is our ngIf. my understanding is that when we create this div with an ngIf associated with it, kind of a local scope gets created as part of this guy. So when it loses, when I submit this, even though it's going to the most local definition of login, when I try to say scope dot, it's using the more local scope, which is this guy, as opposed to the global scope from index controller. But when you say this dot, there's nothing to supersede it. One of the things I read online is they suggested to name your variable something like model dot something like this, and then actually create your own environment at the top of each of your interfaces. That way you wouldn't rely on kind of the default scope, you would control it. So each of your interfaces you might call index controller, maybe index model. And it would start off as just an empty JSON list, because that's essentially how the scopes are stored. The variable array for an environment is just a whole bunch of name value pairs stored in a JSON array. So they would say, go ahead and just store an empty JSON thing, and then you can add stuff to it as you wanted to, rather than rely on the built-in scope. Because as I was reading about it, it's kind of a common problem with Angular, and we've obviously run into that quite a bit, where it becomes ambiguous which scope you're currently under. And if you're constantly using the top level $ scope thing, it gets a little bit weird. But it seemed like the catch-all for this was to use the this keyword, and this comes from JavaScript saying everything's an object. So since everything's an object, we can reference this particular object and ask for this particular guy's username, and it references it correctly. So I'm not sure what we broke before that, but this works just fine. So when we log in, this is our normal login function just like we had before, and then we're reloading our location so it can update this ng app thing, and it recognizes that we are actually logged in. So if we're authenticated, now we're here, so user email. So here's the stuff I changed for this guy. I moved the script for our checkout.js down here. That's not necessarily needed. I just moved it so it was inside. It would only get loaded if we were logged in, rather than always getting loaded. Here's the same script handler we had before. So the issue we had, though, was with the purchase button. Before, we had we created like an on-click listener for our button, and then we had a generic button down here called, well, I forgot what we had originally called it, but what we did is we had JavaScript listening for this custom button. What I did is I changed it around, and now the button has an on-click, which calls back to this function. All right, and as of right now, so the function is defined up here. So our purchase button press is a little bit different. Now it's a function called purchase button press, takes in 3 parameters as of right now, and I'll show you what the current issue is. It takes in a type, a number of cars, because we've decided we're keeping track of how big a yard is by number of cars for everything, and then an amount of money we need to charge. And this was just me printing out to the console proving this guy was getting called. Then we go ahead and we use our handler, which we defined up here. All right, in the handler we open it up, we pass it the name, which I'm associated with this type, number of cars, just for the description, and then the amount we're going to be charging, and that does our little pop-up window to actually execute a purchase. Okay, so that's the current state of things, and this works, and you just saw it kind of pop things up. If I it actually doesn't matter what I type in here, because right now I have it hard-coded what to send to this guy. What we want is we want eyelash checkout to toggle between snow and lawn, depending on what we selected over here. Similarly, what the property size is, we don't want that to be hard-coded, and then obviously the cost should not be hard-coded to $20. The issue with that has to do with the crossover between doing this on the JavaScript side versus doing this with the Angular side. And let me show you what I mean. So down here, where we actually click the button. So here's the on-click, purchase button pressed. I'm passing it my 3 parameters. I've hard-coded in snow, hard-coded in a 5, and hard-coded in a 2000. Well, instead of snow here, what we really want to include is our service type, which is this guy right here, service type. So doing this the Angular way, we would say something like service type. That would be our hope, that we could do something like that. The issue here is that it's not replacing it inside of here like I would have expected it to replace it. So I'll go ahead and run this. And
I think you can just type in service type there, can't you? Because that's a scope variable inside.
In Angular.
Yes, but that on click, that's going to be.
So you think I should just type in service type like that?
Where is your purchase button pressed? Is that inside one of your Angular?
No, it's right up here. It's
oh,
part
that's
of
a jQuery.
Yeah.
Okay,
well,
so,
it's just JavaScript, but yeah, it's on the HTML in the HTML document.
okay.
We could move it into one of ours, but then moving this in there isn't the problem. It's getting this stuff in there. We would have to dynamically load the checkout JavaScripts. I was trying to keep most of it over on the client side. Well, the front-facing client side rather than the Angular client side.
What is that function doing, the purchase button press?
Purchase button press just calls our handler.
Okay.
And the issue here, and this is something I think we ran into last time, is our handler is it does the Stripe checkout configure stuff, so all that stuff should be fine. But at the end of the day, the issue is this guy right here, where we're supposed to be posting to this website, this JSON, and we didn't have a way of doing that from the Angular side of things. I did find a tutorial where we could move some of this stuff into the Angular side, and that would obviously make things probably a little bit easier, but the connecting to our actual server was the more difficult issue here, because we couldn't embed those variables in here. So like, for example, if we just go back to, I was even thinking about doing it in this point. So let me just kind of go through this and show you how it currently works. Let's see, where was I at? Yeah, so we'll go ahead and try the service type thing. I don't think that will work because we really want to use Angular's placeholder stuff to replace that. So we'll run this, and I would expect this guy not to be very happy. And let's go ahead and get the actually, I did something else earlier. Let's see, what did I do? Yeah, this. Oh, it puts it down there. Is there a way to get it over to the right-hand side of the screen? Dock side. There we go. Yeah, this is what it looked like in my office when I was messing with it. It seemed like maybe that was better, but I don't know. Who knows? Okay. That's kind of cool. We can see what our site will look like on mobile. All right. So, actually, it didn't complain yet. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and make this, we'll leave it as snow. We'll click on purchase. Yeah, it doesn't know about service type. So that guy's out of scope. Let me just quickly do Angular binding here. So there was 3 different ways to bind data. ng bind was the one I'm looking for. That's the controller. I guess that other way is not going to help us anyways. So this is the current way I was trying to bind it, so I'll show you what it does when I do that. So the hope is that Angular figures out that we're trying to reference this variable there and replace it with the value of that service type. And it's unclear why it doesn't handle it inside of our button here. I wonder actually.
Can you set another variable to that?
Inside the button?
Or outside of it, and it just in the HTML, and then just put that variable in it? No?
Well, we need to, the same problem.
Yeah.
We run into the exact same problem here. But it's possible maybe we can open up a JavaScript thing, set a local variable, but I don't know if we can access it there anyways. So let's go ahead and run this. Yeah, see, it just hated that. So bottom line is, there doesn't seem to be a convenient way of me passing parameters in here dynamically because of the way onClick works. onClick takes in a string. So this isn't letting me replace it. Although, you know what? Let me think about that for a second. No, I don't think that wouldn't help either. Yeah, so at this point, we have a type that's correct, but we don't have a, so I'll just go back to passing it snow. We don't have a way of dynamically passing this stuff in based on what we said above because of how our onClick is working. So another approach to this might be have our function take in no parameters, and then inside of our function reference the stuff from somewhere. Actually, having said that, I think I have an idea for how that could work.
There's an ng in net, which you can initialize variables and pass them through.
Pass them through to what?
To a function, and then put that into your scope.
Right, but this isn't living inside of my Angular scope. Here, I'll look it up real quick, but I don't think that ng-init. Yeah, I mean, this is the same issue. I mean, we already have local variables that we can do something with. We just don't have a way of getting them into a script. But what I was thinking is in JavaScript, you can access the Angular scope. JavaScript access Angular scope. This route. That's the controller. Function access Angular scope. Yeah, something along the lines of this. We don't want to make changes to it. We just want to have access to it. Okay, so we can give this div, we can give one of our top divs an ID, and then grab that guy's scope. Okay, let's give this a shot. I think there's at least a 72.25% chance this works.
32.3.
Repeating, of course. All right, so ID, let's call that guy main. So then down here, this will let me get the scope. So in here, I'm going to ask for, so this is JavaScript's document object. Nothing to do with Angular. JavaScript maintains an object called document. I'm going to get the element by ID, which is main, which is the ID for that div I put up top, which happens to also be the starting point for my scope for this app. So I'm going to ask that guy for his scope. It's possible I might need to go inside this if it doesn't let me do that, but we'll start with just the top level here. And then, let's see where we're at here. I'll get the scope of that guy. So now the idea here should be that I should be able to say scope dot, what was the guy called? Service type? Service type. Scope dot service type. Let's just try it for that guy. So let's take these three parameters out of here, because that's obviously not the way that's going to work for right now. So now our purchase button is just a no argument on click. But we'll go ahead and try to grab our scope from Angular. And then let's just try to use our checkout. No, because it's a local JavaScript variable scope.
Are you gonna have errors with num cars and amount then?
Yeah, we certainly would, actually. Let's just get rid of those for a second. We'll hard code in amount. We'll just say 2,000. Okay, so we're just going to see if we can accomplish this for service type initially. Okay, so far it doesn't hate it. So currently it's set for snow removal. Purchase, trying, snow, okay. Lawn mowing. Row. Oh, hold on, do I toggle that? Why is that still set to snow?
What's the trying?
That's just me. It's me literally typing trying. All right, this looks like it's working, but I don't know why it's not updating that that value?
Is it because when you first take it, that's what it is, and it doesn't change? Well, you push the button again, so it should read you.
That would be the thought. Let's run it again real quick and not run it with snow the first time. Just see if it makes a difference. All right, so we'll click it over to lawn mowing, purchase. No, it still says snow. So that guy keeps coming back with snow, but we are at least accessing the scope.
When you click the button for lawn, does it just change that text, or does it change that value as well?
Yeah, I'm checking. That's our toggle button down here. Alright, so NG click, snow removal button on click, lawn mowing button on click. So these guys are both inside of our index controller. So this changes our scope service type from snow to lawn, back and forth. Do we need to tell the scope to apply itself? That seems to be something they were talking about over here. That allows you to change something in the scope. Maybe there's a thing called digest. Let me just try something here real quick. We're going to say this seems at least a little promising. Okay. So let's see. I think that this is accurately reading the scope, but do we need to, let's see, Angular scope not updating. Join the club. All right, so let's try this on the controller side. So after we make a change, the thought is that that applies the scope, forcing the updated change, which hopefully translates in here. Still snow. Where did that original snow come from? Is that, yeah, here's our, so I wonder what happens if we don't set it there. Oh, wait a minute. Let's start with that. I wonder if this is something like with the this keyword that I dealt with earlier. All right, undefined. Let's do this dot service type. This dot service type. Don't think we need to apply it. Okay. So we can go back here. Change that to just the word default for a second. All right, yeah, so it's not getting. All right, so the scope is not changing. Default. This is no. This has to be. Well, really, this could be nothing. If we look back at how authentication is done, the username and password are never predefined up here. So, you know, to match that, it would look like this, and those guys they become part of the scope when we first set it. We never actually do this apply thing. This could be a timing issue when JavaScript actually becomes aware of that scope variable. Like, is it processing that function once for the scope, or is it doing it multiple times? All right, undefined initially. Now it should be equal to something. All right, so let's go back here. Seems like we are onto something here, though. Yeah, this is that current scope thing that seems to be weird. Are we requiring jQuery? Are we loading jQuery first or Angular first? Probably not a major deal for what we're doing, but we'll switch it around since they suggested that was best practice. Start digestion. All right, so it's saying do the apply thing after we change something. We haven't done that in that particular order. This actually probably could still be scope. I think we saw that work. At the very least, it pulled the original value. It wasn't changing, but it did pull the original.
Well, it never reset the original.
Right, but it at least was able to access that through the variable called scope. All right, so this should be default right now. Oh, that's actually interesting. Oh, I have it commented out, so it shouldn't be anything right now. Still nothing.
Is it one of the issues where click on it and type something in and it'll change? No.
Couldn't hurt.
No, type it in right there. Start typing something in on the pop-up.
I don't think it would do anything on the pop-up. I mean, because this thing's been preloaded from sending in the stuff. It's like the scope is only getting. Let's click purchase again. Yeah, so try it. I mean, it's calling that function multiple times. We see it updating over here. So every single time we call that function, it should be trying to re-grab the current scope. So with that in mind, let me do this. Let's move this ID main down. Technically, we're inside the user controller here.
What were we in earlier?
The index controller. But I think we saw last time that this guy is a superset, so he gets everything that's in user controller plus the stuff that was in index controller. Let me try just moving main to here. Get element by ID main, get his scope. All right, let's run this. Ah, lawn. Big money, big money, big money. Oh! So we had to move it inside of. So was it that when we had this guy as the ID, it only got the original scope because the controller hadn't taken over yet? All right, so now with that in mind, now we should be able to we have our amount being calculated down here. So let's see, that's the service type. Where is the current cost? Is cost per unit, times lawn number of cars. Oh, but we can, yeah, we can handle that. Because now, since we have access to the scope, we can ask the questions. So we're going to do, so we have lawn and snow number of cars. Let's go back into our code here. So we'll go ahead and get rid of that trying for now. We'll ask if scope.service type is equal to snow, then what we're going to do is we're going to say var number of cars is equal to scope.lawn number of cars. So we'll assume it's lawn number of cars unless we're looking at scope is snow rather. So we'll say number of cars is equal to scope dot snow number of cars. All right, so we'll assume it's lawn, then we'll check to see if surface type is actually snow. If it is, then we'll go ahead and get our snow number of cars. Then we'll say var cost is equal to it's down here more. Cost per unit times scope dot cost per unit times number of cars.
Doesn't that depend on if it's lawn or?
I don't think for right now it doesn't. I think we've hard-coded cost of, but this logic will be easy enough to change if we decide to. So I think right now, aren't we charging the same per car, whether you're mowing a yard or you're mowing your, I'm almost positive we are. Let's.
Snow is 10 and lawn is 8.
And where does that get sent?
If it was last time.
Oh, we're just toggling it depending on what they click. Yeah, so cost per unit's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it gets toggled depending on what we actually click on. Okay. So with that in mind, let's see, that might have been the issue all along. So we weren't.
Your index controller there and the other one's.
Snow removal button clicked. Yeah, these guys aren't even getting called. We're here like click and apply and stuff, and it like makes no difference because they're not even in the right scope. No wonder it wasn't working. Okay. So this is going to be property size plus number of cars, and then amount will be cost. All right, so let's try to run this now. Okay, so we'll choose snow removal initially. We'll say we have a thing of 5. There's snow, property size still set to 0. It assumed lawn. Okay, so that means we're not checking for snow correctly. So I choose lawn here. Oh, sorry. And I switch this to 5. It'll work on this one. Oh. Scope lawn number of cars. Let me do this. Console.log number of, actually let's do log that. So if we click snow and then we do this, we should see a console log true. Okay, yeah, so it found true there. We click lawn, it should be false. Okay, it is, so it's toggling those correctly. All right. But number of cars. Let's look at the user controller. Lawn number of cars started off at 0 for both of these guys, which means that when we change it,
Number of cars is, where's it changed at? That's size.
right, number of cars is bound. It's an ng bind to the, it's never actually changing here.
You change it to size.
Huh?
You change it to size, right?
No, that's just me saying, that's just the word I used.
Oh.
It changes when we type something into that box. There's a text box for number of cars down here. Yeah, snow number of cars, that's the NG model that it's connected to. But since we yeah, I think the issue is that we predefined it. And then when it changes, we're not updating it. Let's comment these out. It'll be undefined initially unless we type something in. Same thing's true for cost per unit. Okay. All right, so currently says not a number. We do snow removal. Yeah, see, that guy's not actually updating.
Is that a case where you have to apply it?
Probably. All right, so let's try doing that when we click on those guys. We'll say scope dot apply. Scope dot apply. All right, so that's the apply working when we do this. I see we,
A bunch of errors.
yeah. Is it $sign apply? Yep. Okay, so that's obviously bound. So right now we know that they should both be local in the scope, because this number wouldn't be able to be calculated if this number wasn't found. All right, so property size is the one that's not.
Well, and the price isn't either. The price would be next to pay on the button.
I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, that's what $20 was.
Oh, is it? All right, let's do something.
Oh, you don't have scope dot number of cards and scope dot cost. If you scroll down to handler dot open.
Because it's a local variable number of cars. All right, so we know that was doing the right thing. Let's just assume it's lawn for right now. Then cost per unit, let's do console.log scope.cost per unit. See what that guy comes out with. And yeah, just leave it at that for right now. Alright,
So we have another problem with the payment with just being 8. For $8, it'd be 800.
well, that's fine. Let's get the variables across, and then that's an easy problem to fix. All right, so it was able to find. Are you sure that shows up on that button? I don't think it does. So it's got to be. So maybe we have to just multiply it by 100. Let's just do it up here. So cost was 8. Print out cost afterwards. Okay, that explains that. We saw cost per unit is that. Let's print out number of cars. And we know 100 is a number, so. Okay, so it's that guy's undefined. So that's this guy right here was undefined. Console.log that. This is snow. All right, so this would be cost per unit, followed by lawn number of cars, snow number of cars, and then just number of cars, which should be something. We already know this was coming back like 8 or 10. So then the next two values should be the guys that are something. My guess is that they're currently undefined. Yeah, both of them are undefined. And when do they get set? When we click on let's see that this guy should have a value right now.
Where are you getting your current cost though? Because that value should then
Right. I mean, it's calculating it here, so it's in the local scope. So if we come back over here,
what are you posting? What are you?
the current cost is taking our cost per unit, multiplying it by the lawn number of cars. So it's in our scope. And whenever we change something in that text box, here's the lawn number of cars. So it's bound right here. But
you want to change that to a number instead of text?
Well, I mean, that won't make a difference. We're getting an undefined value. It's a loosely typed language behind the scenes that won't make a difference. At this point, we would take anything that doesn't say undefined. We can make it not say undefined if we go into here, user controller, and default it to 0. But what's interesting is the cost per unit is updating. And who's setting that? Oh, that updates when we here. I guess we could do this. Here, let's try this. Take it out of there. So this is lawn. So we'll start it at a 0. This is snow. Start that off at a 0. So that would establish it in the scope, binding it to 0, and then will it change? All right, so that's where that 0 came from. So if I change this to a 5 now, that's updated. Yeah, it still thinks it's a 0. So it's not actually updating, and there's no way for us to apply it. That'd be pretty funny. Let's see. Angular, HTML, text. Bind. I wonder if those things supersede each other. Because I think all that needs to happen is we need to do an apply on the scope, but we tried to do it here, didn't we? Scope.apply. Didn't it scream at us? Because I think right now those two values are locally available but not available on the controller side. But we're not in either. We're in the JavaScript. So we're proving that we're at least experiencing that they are available here. When I change this guy to a 6, this guy updates. So the local scope is able to deal with this, but behind the scenes it hasn't been updated so that when we click this, it doesn't know about those values. So let me refresh this now so we get the new JavaScript there, where I'm attempting to apply. Yeah, see, it doesn't know about apply. So the alternative is I wonder if this button can have both an on-click and a NG, what's it called, NG click?
NG model?
No, NG click.
NG click,
I mean, that's pretty ghetto. Because we can do this, and then just call this guy reapply. So we're hoping this button does two separate things. We wanted to apply the scope and then call the purchase button thing. So then down here in user controller, just steal this real quick. We called this guy, what, reapply? And all this guy is going to do is call scope apply. And we want him to do that hopefully before the other function gets called. So when somebody clicks our button that says purchase, we want it to reapply. Here, let's put a console in there. In reapply, and then we'll steal this because order is pretty important here. In purchase button pressed. So we're hoping that when we click on this button, both of those things happen. But I suspect that ng click will supersede the on click. Hated almost all that. In purchase button pressed. Okay. Oh, we still have that. Yeah, it's wait, there's in reapply. It's a shame. It happens in that order. Just for the sake of whether or not this would work anyways, we're going to create a second button. So we're going to click our reapply button first, then click purchase and see if it at least does what we want it to do. All right. So we should have two buttons, and we need to make sure we click them in the right order. All right. So there's our 5. We get a reapply. Oh.
Do you need? I don't think you need the dollar sign.
I think you do. Yeah, it doesn't know about the function. See those errors again. See, this digest thing is the thing that reapply effectively tells it to do, is redigest the variables. I wonder why that would. Can't we do a bind?
Scope apply, call scope head drag digest.
Are we getting any of the information over here? So forget about this reapply thing. That appears to be a dead end. So I don't need that button anymore. purchase guy gets me here, and I'm getting the scope, and that seems to be good. I can't call functions on it, which I guess makes some sense, because we're not getting number of cars. We are getting cost per unit. Angular or scope update. It's not changing the value in the scope. We don't have an opportunity to update the value when we click here. An event occurs, but that event is not, that's just updating this guy here. No variable has changed behind the scenes. This guy is supposed to have two-way binding. That guy's supposed to have two-way binding. That means in the scope, this variable should have a value. Right, so we currently have it for snow, so I'm guessing this is lawn, this is snow. But it's set to 0, so this guy doesn't update it. Regular. Let's do scope not binding.
It doesn't make sense though, because it's binding in that one spot to update the price.
On the view side. So it does make sense. The view side, it looks fine. It's the server side where we're actually asking.
Yeah.
Or the model side, I guess. So in the model side, which is what our JavaScript function is asking for, isn't getting updated. We need it to apply, but we have no way of telling it to apply. I wonder if this is that isolated scope stuff I had read about. JavaScript update Angular scope. Oh, it seems to think that we can do this from the JavaScript side. It's still 0. The value's right there. The heck is that? Oh, that did it. Okay. I'm a little bit concerned about searching for what that means. You might get some very strange Google results. I mean, that's solved it. So with that in mind, that's our number of cars. Now we can ask this question. And then we should be able to get the cost. let's run this first, and then we'll do the crazy Google search. All right, so that looks right.
Yep.
And then if I switch it to lawn mowing, and we do 10, or wide lawn mowing.
Oh.
So that's not getting into this if statement.
So is lawn number of cars?
That's what it should be for lawn mowing. This has to be a syntax error because we're not doing anything different on that side. Lawn number of cars. Let's start off with that guy. Okay. But snow removal, if we do this and do 9 or something. All right, so snow removal works if we do it the first time. But lawn does not. What's the difference on those buttons? All right, it's doing all the right math. So if I say lawn and I put in some number here, it's doing the correct math, so it knows about that stuff. All right, so that means it has to be in our function.
Would you want to set number of cars equal to 0 and then try to change that?
We could. I don't know why that would make a difference. So we're creating a variable. We're starting it equal to whatever we think. Oh, maybe that sets the type. Like if this guy's undefined, it could be an argument for that. So then throw an else in here. If it's not snow, it must be this. So we'll say number of cars is equal to the lawn number of cars. Then we'll do our cost thing. Okay. Now that's for snow. That is working, but it was working before. It's lawn. Run it it again, do lawn right out of the gate.
So why does the number of cars have to be different for lawn and snow? Why couldn't that just be a variable?
Well, it could be. I think originally we were thinking that we would have two different ways of measuring. Like it wouldn't be how many cars.
I mean, if you saved it in your profile, it'd make more sense as well.
Let's see, are we doing something different in here? We are hard coding our service type here. And it's only working for snow. So if it doesn't work for either now, okay, 10. Yeah, the reason why it was working is, so if we hard coded this to lawn and then run it, now it'll work for the lawn side of things. Okay, so that's based on initial value. In actuality, this seems kind of right, that it looks like this. Probably the purchase button would be invisible, but you would click on the service you wanted and then it would open up like this. All right, so we're doing, just before we go any further, dare we search for that? Such a random let's run that and then apply. So we can't do it without actually, let me try this. Get rid of that. Go in here and say this dot. I have no idea why the other guys wouldn't also be this dot. So it only works if we give it an initial service type, and then it only works for that service type.
But if you switch off that service type and go back to it, it doesn't work.
It's not working because the value has changed. So if I go here, just console service type. All right, so that found the service type as snow. I switch it here, found it as lawn, so that guy's changing. All right. Service type. That's snow, number of cars. That's lawn. Okay. And then we're going to do cost. Well, let's just start with these so we don't. Okay, so we expect to have the correct service type, and we expect to have a number of cars relative to the service type. Snow is first, lawn is second. All right. So this should be snow and then 5, but I think it's going to be snow, undefined, undefined. Actually, snow is 0, and that's because we are hard coding it to 0.
Right there. Number of cars.
Here.
Or was it if you go back to the?
No, it's here. This is where the 0 is coming from.
Oh.
So if we take this out and instead rely on the binding. So the whole reason we put that in there is because the two-way binding had stopped working. Yeah, see, now it's undefined. So lawn and
Are you applying the scope?
well, so we can do this. So lawn start off as 8, and then what is it? Lawn number of cars is equal to 0. Because the service type is toggling. So this would just be initial values for all the guys. This guy is toggling, so there's no reason to think that these other ones wouldn't toggle as well. We're switching back and forth between 10 and 8 here. But there's no reason for us to change these guys. But actually, why not? Why not just mimic exactly what we're doing with the other guy? So this would be lawn. But the important thing is it pre-existed. And this is snow. So now we're treating number of cars the exact same way as we're treating service type. And service type was toggling.
Except it's this instead of scope. Because that was still titled incorrect.
Correct. So those guys. Scope at the top, this down here. Snow removal. It's just completely dumb. Lawn and snow toggle. We're going to print out the cost per unit as well. That's going to really be infuriating if we get cost per unit. And of course we do. Everything toggles except these stupid. Yay.
That might have to do with the binding, because the cost per unit is always, you're programming it to change.
Right. As opposed to binding it in the so the only difference is that snow number of cars and lawn number of cars are being set by this this binding up here, wherever it is. Right here. It's part of this model. That's the way it's supposed to work. Are we doing the apply up here still? Scope dot $sign apply. Still 0.
You can do an ng change
On
the input, and then that would call a function inside your JavaScript which would change that.
Oh yeah, by the way, oh yeah, so see how that says expression?
Yep.
If you have, I mean, I know it might make sense to because what, you're just going to try to change the value, right?
Yeah.
Basically, so it's going to be a toggle. You can just give it.
Do it right there.
Yeah, like you don't even have to call a function. You can do it where it says expression.
Right. All right, so this would be on something like a checkbox. Okay, so this is what connects it back to the. So is this stuff just basically it's two-way binding as long as you're on the view side? Okay, so that's the ng model. Then we're going to have an ng change. But does this expression solve anything, or do we need the function to get it over to the?
Ng change stuff. If you go down, it calls it like a function. Ng change, it's on an input.
Well, this would be something on your controller. You would write a change function. But how do you know who called it?
Well, wouldn't it be the model that it's in?
Well, I don't think you would have to have two different change functions. Like snow car number change and
Or you could just pass a variable, right?
well, we don't have a variable to pass it here. So this is kind of a crappy example, this one. Let's see if we have a better, like, legitimate example. Change. Okay, so it looks like something like this, where we would say the name of the variable is equal to the what is my style on this? That's an NG style. Well, I guess let's give it a shot. So in this particular case, oh, we're not doing it on that. So there's the NG model, NG change is equal to I mean, how do you even give it the value from that? That's the whole purpose of the model. Okay.
Which tag did you put that NG change in?
The text field for our right now for I think the snow number of cars.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, here's scope.change is a function, and it's just going to update a counter. All right, so I guess let's just write this the brute force way. So we're going to say we have change, but there's no way to
You want it to be for both service types?
well, I could do it as individual service types, but I still don't have a way of getting the value from the text box, except for the fact that it's. I mean, here let's just print out that it's working.
You have an NG model.
Yeah, yeah. So it's already in here. I mean, the point is let's just print out the console on it. So we're going to say console log, and we're going to do scope. Lawn number of cars, so we're going to call this change lawn. And we're going to have a second version of this called change snow. There's snow number of cars. All right, so we'll have NG change for each of these guys, call, change lawn, and change snow, and let's just see if the values match up. We'll console out. And if they match up, then we know it's changed on this side, then maybe what we call scope apply, and magically it works. All right, so this is going to be change lawn. Okay. And then this one. All right, so whenever this text box changes, we're calling change lawn in the controller. Whenever this other text box changes, we're calling change snow in the controller. And then all the controller is going to do is console out the current value of those text boxes. So, and it says it happens immediately, so I'm guessing it might call multiple times while we're typing stuff in the text box, which is fine. Glorious. All right, what if we force an apply before? So, I mean, right there, that's proof that it's not actually updating over there, because it's just getting a bunch of zeros, even though we've put in a whole bunch of values. If we turn this over to this guy, still 0 a bunch of times. Let's just make sure that it's calling the right version of this. So we're going to do console.log change snow. And then this guy will be.
What if you tried this small number of cars?
Not a horrible idea. Let's try it. Might not help us here because we're just trying to prove the values changed. That still doesn't get us over to the other side. But at least this is what we were trying to accomplish, of having something get called on the controller side when the text changes. So this should call change snow. Okay, you're right on the this dot. This should call. All right, so it's changing and it's getting those values. All right, so that might be okay for right now, because now what we can do is we can come in here and do this dot apply, this dot apply, and the theory should be that should update the scope, making it available on the other side. So our hope here is that there's snow removal. All right. Ooh. Oop. Well, this could be really, I think, funny in like a haha, I want to cry myself to sleep way. Let's see. So if we do this and set this guy equal to this, there's just no way. Bad thing is, I think this is going to work. Because we were getting the zeros before when we did scope, right? And it changed for the this. So why do we have to pass the value over? Because Angular can't keep track of its own scopes. So change the lawn, this dot lawn, so this is coming out the right value. Then we're going to overwrite the wrong value with the right value. Okay, purchase. Just want to toss the laptop. Totally worked. It's completely ridiculous. Well, which actually means this then. We no longer have to do these things. So now it actually gets to work the way we wanted it to work, where, oh, hold on a second, sorry. There's no number of...
You have the service type set already. So that's why the boxes are...
Oh, I understand. So we actually, did we need to do that?
I don't know. Let's test it out.
Is it, I mean... So that worked for snow. That works for lawn. Yeah, look at that. It's like we know what we're doing. Absolutely ridiculous. And the worst part is we don't even know why.
What's the difference between scope and this? In Angular.
Well, I read up on that. So, I mean, I can tell you that one. It's that because of how Angular is written behind the scenes, things that we don't have control over, scopes become ambiguous. So it's not necessarily clear at all points in time what scope you're currently sitting in, which is why they suggest you effectively name your scope something dot something. That way you can, you know you're accessing the scope called user or something like that. So that's since we didn't do that, that's where this thing comes in. That's literally saying access the local scope. It might not be the scope you think it is, but it is the real local scope.
So something I saw not too long ago was something about child scopes and parent scopes. Using parent dot or child dot.
Did you read anything about the $2 sign childHead? Hey, who comes up with these things?
Well, if you developers.
Well, I guess on the bright side, our application currently is set up where, and we can have this purchase button, only show up if we have, so we come in here, so when this is something greater than 0, then we can have the purchase button show up. And that would take us into the actual purchase. We can check out, blah, blah, blah. Which would then also add it to our list. Okay, so let's take a 20-minute then we'll add that, and then we'll start the iPhone version of the app to have a change of pace here.
You're gonna post that together.